I was talking with my cousin today. I haven't spoken to her for over 20 years, and we discussed mental health, and we discussed about addiction to certain feelings, certain emotions, and the hormones that are released as a result of those. So now the neuromuscular law is relative on the basis of nerves and muscles, but it also works in the neurons in the brain. So for example, if you're staying in a state of stress for a long period of time, those neurons are going to be the path well trodden. Okay, so think about it. If you're walking out in the forest, you're going to see the area where people walk. You're going to follow that path, aren't you? Because it's the path well trodden. It's the easiest way, the path of least resistance. Same kind of thing goes with your brain, and it goes with your nerves. So reaction to certain stimulus, your neurons will fire off along the path of least resistance. Okay, now this is where things like mindfulness and brain training come in handy, because you start to beat down new paths and you start to make new connections with new nerves and new pathways. It's called neuroplasticity. And this is how I managed to retrain my brain, which I will go into more detail with the retraining part of that at some point. But it's just so that you are aware of recurring reactions and, you know, staying in a state of stress. Now, as I said earlier, I talked about addiction and addiction to emotions. As with any chemical in your body, if you're used to having it there and then all of a sudden you stop having it, you can feel a withdrawal. So a really good example of this is social media and the addiction to dopamine. So constantly posting things up and checking to see if you've got any likes, just so you get that tiny little bit of dopamine. And if you don't get that bit of dopamine, you know, you feel a bit disappointed, you feel a bit, It can go a bit further, you know, you can go full-blown narcissism with it, but I'm not even going to get into that. Stress is very much the same. And if you've gone for a period of your life where you've been chronically stressed and you've stayed in that period of stress, you're going to be addicted to cortisol. You won't realise it. It's not the same as like giving up cigarettes or anything more harsh than that, but you will have that sort of, it's not so much addiction, it's a case of you're used to having that coursing through your body. Your body is used to it. So your physiology is adapted on that basis of having that there. If you're wondering why I'm wobbling, I'm actually sat on a ball. So that's why I'm wobbling about. I don't like desk chairs. They're not good for you. But that's another time for that one. But yes, so if you're used to having cortisol through your body, and then all of a sudden you have something positive happen in your life, and the cortisol starts to go away, you have the withdrawal. And you can become quite anxious as a result of that, because you'll start thinking, oh, something's going to go wrong, and that will create more stress. There you will get more cortisol. Leads me on to another topic, which is self-sabotage. I'm not sure if I've spoken about this one before, but this kind of coincides with addiction to cortisol and addiction to stress. So, for example, as I said, you come through a period of stress for a long period of time. So, for example, studying for a medical degree, that's pretty bloody stressful. And you get out the other side and something positive happens. So, to counteract that, your body will start sending off signals of anxiousness. Your brain will start firing off along the usual pathways, path of least resistance. You will start having negative thoughts, things that are, in general, is a protection mechanism, but it can also cause you to put so much negativity on the positive event that you can sabotage it, so that then you're back to your state of chronic stress. Okay, so for example, when you get anxious, if you go into a new relationship or you go into a new job and you get in there, it's all going really well, and you'll be in there for like a month, and you'll be like, oh, this is amazing, and you're getting on great with everybody, and then all of a sudden, I'm going to fail, I'm going to get fired, or they're going to run away, they're going to do this. And that starts repeating over and over in your head, because it, you know, path of least resistance, those neurons start firing off. So you start getting those recurring thoughts, thinking about that time of chronic stress that you had, and things that are negative, because you've already walked along those paths so many times. Path of least resistance, the most trodden path. Sorry, I'm hitting the table. So as a result of that, your mindset on the event completely changes, and you see it as a negative event, or you predict a negative event, and you become so programmed with that you can perform actions that will enable the positive event to become negative, which is self-sabotage. The reason I'm talking about this is because I know about it, because I've done it a few times, and it's something that I had to recognise in myself. Nobody ever told me about it. It's one of the reasons why I thought I'd talk about it today. Nobody ever told me about it. Nobody ever told me about being addicted to stress. It's one, again, that, you know, with a lot of self-study, you kind of figure it out on your own. So these are things to consider with regards to looking at your thought patterns and how you're perceiving things. If you're constantly exposing yourself to stressful situations, then you will remain stressed. If you don't want to be stressed anymore, try and remove yourself from them situations. And whenever you get a thought or a reaction, anxious reaction or negative thought, try and recognise it as a path of least resistance. Try and recognise it as, oh, it wants the cortisol back. Oh, obviously I'm getting withdrawal symptoms. Try and see it like that. Try and give that a go. It's an interesting way of doing it. It's an interesting way of realising exactly how powerful hormones are. As a woman, I know all about that. But yeah, this one stands for everybody, because everybody's got cortisol. And if you can look at the way that you perceive things and actually understand that sometimes it's not necessarily what the case is, and it's just your methodology from your physiology projecting itself to try and create a situation to feed what it's used to, you can actually start turning that around. There are other techniques which I will talking about mindfulness, but just understanding that there is an addiction to cortisol, understanding about the path of least resistance, it can help you create new paths, and it can help you to recognise thought patterns that you get, and rather than reacting, it's just observing. Okay?